Let's make some noise. Come on.
Yes, indeed, Nick Foles. Thank you once again. How can you not get amped when you hear Nick Foles asking you to make some noise? Welcome everybody back to another rousing episode of the Final Word here on the It's a Rap Sports Network. It's your boy MattyB on the call. It is a Wednesday night, midweek, and we're here. And yes, I know there's been some confusion about when I was going to be here or not. Tomorrow, next day, day before that. But we worked it all out, and I'm here tonight. I will be also back tomorrow night. So I think at the end of all this, I will get 4 in out of 5. That's not bad. I'll take those odds any day. And to be back here with you tonight to report a series win, the Phillies, just really sort of rising to the late season occasion as good teams have a tendency of doing. 11-3 winners tonight over the hapless New York Mets. And I think it's okay now to say you can stick a fork in them. They are done as far as challenging for the NL East, as that magic number has now been reduced down to 7 games. Lucky number 7. Daddy needs a new pair of shoes. 7 games as we are getting closer to our second consecutive NL East division title. Still a little bit of a, some distance between that and the number 1 overall seed in the NL. I don't know if I'm torn about what I want to do with that. Number 2 is fine by me. I'll worry about the Brewers if that ship happens to sail by at that time. I'm not really worried about pushing for the number 1 overall seed in the NL, locking down that division, getting that first round bye, because we've already debunked the first round bye mythology, because the Dodgers won the World Series last year and they, yes, had a first round bye. So it is no longer the voodoo of the first round bye again. I and this is a conversation for at least a few days from now when they clinch. Is a first round bye something that this team needs, to be realistic? and you all know what I'm talking about. But the magic number is down to 7. Dominating performance tonight by Christopher Sanchez. The Mets look just pathetic, honestly. But it's all about getting to October, and our sights are now clear. So we got the game tomorrow. Perfect opportunity right now to win tomorrow, get it down to 5, and then finish this thing off over the weekend against the Royals at home. That's what I've been waiting for all season long, to celebrate the NL East title at CBP against the Kansas City Royals. You couldn't draw it up any perfect. That the Royals are coming to town and we have an opportunity to win the NL East. Let's raise the flag in front of the Royals, because they really give a rat's ass less about us winning the NL East. But that opportunity is lining up, because I don't want to go out on the road in the West Coast and celebrate the NL East championship in LA or in Arizona. I'd rather do it here in front of the faithful, especially if they got to raise the flag at 2:00 in the friggin' morning on a Wednesday, and I'm stuck doing the post-game show. And I got to stay up an extra time to fire off the confetti cannon. I don't really want to do all that. So please help me out. Win the damn thing this weekend, so we all can get some sleep. But Phillies win 11-3. That's on the table. We'll continue the conversation so eloquently begun on the Fighting's Final by Steve Fuentes, Stevie F, whatever he goes by. Your Eagles are getting ready for week 2 against the Kansas City Chiefs, and Dallas Goedert is hurt. Took 1 week before we start talking about Dallas Goedert and his problems with injuries. A right knee sprain been reported today as the Eagles return to practice to prepare for the acceptable loss. I don't really want to get too much into that. If you want to bring that up, that's fine. I'll address it. I have a kinship to WIP. I've always respected WIP. I grew up listening to WIP. Not many people can. I literally grew up listening to WIP as it debuted to the 24/7 sports content when I was 13 years old in 1986. Those of you don't remember them days. Back in the day, prior to that, you had like a 2-hour block of sports on 1210, and you'd have to listen to it like at 7 o'clock at night. Don Henderson, Steve Fredericks, those guys. And then that was it. You had to wait till tomorrow to listen to sports again. But in 86, when WIP 610, mind you, AM debuted their all sports content, I was hooked immediately, like a lot of other people. And I have seen the evolution or de-evolution of the network throughout the years. And yeah, it's unlistenable these days. I get you. I'm right on board. It's not unlistenable because of the takes, in my opinion. It's unlistenable because of the personalities of that network. I just can't stand any of them, with the exception of a few. Kyle Quinn being one, of course, my boy. Jack Fritz is a friend of the show. James Seltzer's also a friend. But for the rest of them, they can go pound sand as far as I'm concerned, because they're not likable people to me, man. And I'm a people person. I gravitate to all kinds, and all kinds gravitate towards me. I just can't seem to gravitate towards these guys. So Elliot Shortparks of 94 WIP reported that this is, or stated that this could be an acceptable loss, and I think it's being taken out of context by the homers out there. We can address that. I really don't want to, but if you want to bring it up, I'll talk about it. So that's on the table. And the Flyers speak today. Dan Hilfery, whatever his name is, Keith Jonesy. They addressed the media assembled with more broad State of the Union type responses. They didn't really get too deep into X's and O's. Some players were brought up. Alexei Kovasov's name was brought up. Mitch Koff's name was brought up. And then Howard Eskin, and again, another friend of the network and a personal idol of mine, who was actually there. I guess that's the one place he hasn't been banned from. It was there, and he was asking questions, and he asked a very important question, and we'll get into what the response to that important question was, because I thought it was a very poignant discussion about what was said today by the Flyers brain trust, the upper management, and about what the future of this team is, and exactly what this rebuild is expected, especially in 2025, 2026. And I think some of the comments are a little open-ended, a little bit open to interpretation, and I'm not really feeling the confidence in our ability as a hockey team to not set a franchise record of not making the playoffs for 6 straight years. Just not feeling that, and I'll get into all that a little bit later on the show. So that is on the table. Your day in Philadelphia sports history. Your of the night segment will be a Flyer spotlight player and your card review as well, all tied up in a neat little bow here on the Final Word with your boy, MattyB. Joe Hale, how are you doing? Ryan Swope says, Matty, what's going on? Hey, Ryan, how are you? Joe says, hey, everybody. And then Steve Fuentes, I remember when my uncle would have WIP on 610 when he would pick me up for the summer, and I knew I was hooked. 100%. And this is the thing, and Steve Fuentes, of course, a proud member of the It's a Wrap Sports Network. For those of you who are not aware of this, and I'll restate our mission statement here on the network, it is to bring, because the concept of what WIP stood for and what all these sports talks around the world and country, what they stand for, the concept of 24/7 sports talk is alive and well. It's a golden concept that has a place still after all these years, and it can still be successful, and it's still widely popular. But what has happened was, of course, corporations and money have gotten their hands on this thing, and it completely turned it on its end. And that's why this revolution that you're witnessing over the last 5-10 years or so with this grassroots DIY type of movement that we're doing is where the future is. It truly is, because these companies eventually are going to get crushed by their own greed. And that day is coming sooner than later. I'm telling you, 10 years from now, terrestrial sports talk radio is going to be of the past. And it's all going to be on this side, on the digital side, where you don't need millions of dollars worth of sponsorship. You don't have to have your hand in the pocket of the Eagles or the Flyers or the Phillies. You don't need that, So the concept of sports talk works. And back in 86, when it started, was amazing. And to realize I could not only listen to sports talk any day of the week, any time of the day, I could actually call in and participate in that sports talk. So obviously a gold mine. Ryan Swope says, not Joe Giglio, please. He never sticks to what he says. Can't believe him. He changes his opinions, and his beliefs with the wind is always changing. So Ryan, I'm gonna give you a little trick of the trade, and I may be doing something that I shouldn't be doing, but I'm gonna reveal a secret. So now I actually got Howard to admit to this on the air one time when I interviewed him way back when, and I asked him. I said, Howard, is this a pre-planned good cop, bad cop type stick that most of these guys do? Do they sit down pre-show and be like, all right, this is the topic. I'm taking this side. You have to take the bad side. Or I'm taking the bad side. You have to take the good side. Even though you may not necessarily agree to that point, but we got to go on opposite ends because we can't sit here and be both like, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it works. We can't both have the same opinion. Now, if you had both had the same negative opinion, it probably would work, but you can't be positive. You both can't be positive. So I don't know how many of these things are Joe Giglio's own. I respect anyone who steps up and does this, regardless of whether or not they're pre-scripted or not. There's a lot of balls to do that. But, and, to the MattyB persona, I've been accused of being a rage bait, click artist, hot take guy myself. I've been accused of that. And that's a badge of honor I wear. And I am here to tell you that all my opinions are my own. They've always been my own. Is there some showmanship involved? Of course there is. Do I go to bed at night sticking pins in my Howie Roseman doll? No, of course I don't. But, there is some showmanship involved. But as far as my opinions, they are mine. And I can't speak intelligently about others like that. But I know it's a trick, and I know it's a confirmed trick of the trade. And another little bit of information, when I was with EOP, I was ruffling some feathers over there with my my controversial takes. And I think he's watching. He's probably remembers when he told me this, but Al said to me one day, he's like, how in the hell could we survive as a network if we all stood around and agreed with each other? How boring that would be. So every network needs a MattyB. You just need one. Every show needs a heel. Every contest needs a villain. You always got to root against somebody. Howard Stern taught us that a long, long time ago. It wasn't that people agreed with Howard or they mostly hated him, but they had to tune in to see what he had to say next. That's how it's done. I'm sorry. But in my own personal thing, my opinions are my own, but I can't speak for anybody else. Painter shut down the Rail Riders lineup today. And listen, we're going to get into our day in Philadelphia sports history. And it's kind of an Andrew Painter-esque point I want to bring up with us pushing forward towards the playoffs here in a second. Steve says, AM sports radio used to be so damn good, would always push the boundaries. They would, but now their hands are too deep in people's pockets, Steve. You know how that is. And you can't push boundaries. You got to be careful what you do, what you say. And of course, the culture that we live in, the society that we all, live in is just dreck. Listen, I can honestly tell you that I don't care who I offend. And I can honestly tell you, and Steve, you can attest to this, being that you participate in this network. I have never told you, nor have I ever told anybody, nor will I ever will tell anybody what to say. That is not my goddamn purpose in life. Steve, you were a soldier. I was a soldier. We spent better parts of our lives. I spent my entire -5 years of my adult life defending the Constitution and the right and freedoms of speech. How the hell can I sit here and tell people, what to do because we're getting paid? I'm not going to do that. And I would never tell anybody that worked here in this capacity. I will never say, you better come on and take this point of view. I'm never going to do that. Absolutely not. And that would make me the biggest hypocrite in the world. And one thing I am not is a hypocrite. I want to see more of you and Jack Fritz soon again. We'll see what we can do. Jack's a good get, but Jack's a busy man. I mean, he's making his own way in the world down there at WIP these days. Hey, Ricky, how are you today? Good to see you. All right, listen, let's get it rolling. Let's get strapped on, strapped up, strapped in Keep your head, hands, and feet inside the car at all times, and let's roll with our night, our day in Philadelphia sports history. Remember, I said keep Andrew Painter in mind when we go over this. So on this day back in 1980, now, a lot of you out there, to include me, I was only 7 when the Phillies won their first World Series. I couldn't sit here and tell you what happened in game 140 of that season, nor can I tell you. The only thing I can tell you is my mom woke me up after they beat the Royals and said, let's go to Frankfurt and Cotman. They just won. That's all I remember from that season. I ain't gonna lie to you, I'm 7. But for those of us who consider ourselves historians about that season, you go back and you look, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for the Phillies in 1980. They were pushed to the very end by the Montreal Expos that season. Matter of fact, they won the division by a game over the Expos. And on this day in 1980, rookie pitcher Marty Bystrom made his debut and pitched a 5-hit complete game shutout over the Mets, 5-0, to fuel the late season pennant push for the Phillies in 1980. Bystrom would go on and win the next 4 starts that he had that year, pushing to the end of the season. So he finished his rookie year 5-0 with a 1.50 ERA. Crucial, of course, in the Phillies' ability to win that division by 1 game. Now, Bystrom also made a few appearances in the 80 playoffs, pitched pretty well, but his career never really it kind of flamed out a little bit. It never lived up to that expectation and that hype. So as we are rolling down the stretch here, and I know I've taken the stand of not bringing Andrew Painter up here and letting him sit to where he needs to be. And maybe if this was a tighter race, because right now the Phillies are now 10 games up, 11 games ahead, 7's the magic number. Obviously, I don't think there's much of a clamoring for Andrew Painter to come up here now. But if we were in a tighter race, 3, 4, 5 game lead with 2 weeks left to go in the season, would my opinion change about whether or not Andrew Painter should come up? I can't say that it would. I can't say that it wouldn't. But we've seen it before, and I've just read you a bit of Phillies history where it did happen for the Phillies by bringing up a rookie pitcher in Marty Bystrom. He would go on to win his first 5 starts and pitch to a 1.50 ERA in the process, helping the Phillies take the division over the Expos by that single game deficit. And of course, the rest is history, winning the 80 World Series. There you go. The debut of Marty Bystrom, whose career sort of plateaued here in the 80 pennant run and in the playoffs. He pitched pretty well in the playoffs too for the Phillies. But that is your day or your moment in Philadelphia sports history. And that was brought to you by the fine folks here at the old It's a Wrap Sports Network, makers and creators of such fine programming as the aforementioned Fighting's Final. And as you can see, this schedule kind of got blown up right from the very start of things. I was on Monday. Mike was on Tuesday. Tonight was Steve Fuentes. And then tomorrow is going to be Mike Laro. So absolutely nobody that I put on this schedule about a month ago is going to work when they're supposed to. That's how you run a well-oiled company, goddammit, when you don't follow through with anything. Listen, I got many mouths to feed over here. I got to put these schedules out far enough in advance that these guys have the opportunity to adjust things in their lives. And I also have to be very flexible when it doesn't work out. So it was one of those weeks, but we covered it. So tomorrow it will not be me. It'll be Mike Laro taking you on the Fighting's Final. I will be back for the final word preceding the Fighting's Final. So there you go. That was the big lead in there. I just wanted to, because I know there's been some confusion. It's not only out there, but internally too. There's been some confusion of who's doing what when. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up and sort of put it to bed. But busy day in the network tomorrow. We got 5 shows tomorrow. So we're going to get things rolling here. But tonight, let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and week 2 bearing down upon us. They're back at practice. Dallas Goedert's knee sprain now. Again, I know I rode this plateau all season. I rode this thing all last year. One of the reasons why I do not believe Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback, which again, I don't think he's a terrible quarterback, but he's not elite. And one of the reasons is because I don't think at least last year with Kellen Moore's playbook, the full playbook was open to Jalen Hurts. I think they shut a part of it down because they didn't trust his ability to make certain plays. I believe it was 361 passes attempted last year and 48 completions to the middle of the field. Now, a lot of people told me throughout the course of that season, well, maybe it was because of the injury situation with Dallas Goedert. Now, what happens on week 1? Hurts completes 4 passes to the middle of the field, all to Goedert, except 1 to Dotson. So 3 to Goedert and 1 to Dotson. Was really kind of using that middle of the field a little bit more so than I've seen him use it over the course of the last season. Now you got Dallas Goedert back on sort of the walking wounded list. I don't think this is anything specifically long-term. I think this is a day-to-day type situation. Will he make it onto the field Sunday? Obviously, I don't know, and I guess we don't know. I know he was he's just showed up on the injury report now. We've seen injuries sort of improving up for game day play, but how concerned, again, once we saw this offense work the way it did, which wasn't great, and I'm going to sit there and say that the offense wasn't great Thursday night. It wasn't. It was great because Jalen Hurts ran them to victory. And to sit here and tell me that Jalen Hurts somehow conducted a master class on passing efficiency, that's just not going to happen when you only had, I believe, your number 1 wide receiver targeted 1 time. Devontae Smith was targeted 3 times. It just doesn't work like that. And also, when your quarterback outrushes your perennial rushing leader of the league, Saquon Barkley, in the game. So Jalen Hurts was my offensive MVP for the Eagles game on Thursday. Absolutely, because the offense ran completely through him and his feet. But now you're going to take away another weapon, potentially in Dallas Goedert. And with the Kansas City Chiefs and being the acceptable loss, and I'm going to use it because I think it's really funny to use, with the Chiefs coming into this game with their backs against the wall, looking at 0-2, Eagles coming into town, they have an opportunity to enact some revenge. The Chiefs faithful have an opportunity to enact some revenge. I mean, what does this do to the offense? Again, if I am wrong, if I'm the only one who saw an offense that looked okay for at least a half of a game, because one of the big selling points of this football game coming out of it was, the offense was on fire, and that the defense figured it out in the second half and limited the Cowboys to no points in the second half. We're not talking that the Eagle offense only scored 3 points in the second half, 21 in the first, 3 in the second, which is completely off script of a year ago where they couldn't score in the first half and went off in the second half. So what does the potential continuous chronic injury problems of Dallas Goedert, what does that do to this Eagle offense? And what does that do to a defense and their ability to game plan against it? We already know the blueprint is out there of how to stop Saquon. It's to stack the box and make Jalen Hurts beat you with his arm. The problem is with the Cowboys, they forgot about his feet and they left him run amok against them. But the blueprint is out there on how to stop Saquon by stacking that box and making Jalen Hurts throw the football. Now, middle of the field in that type of configuration should be pretty open. Should be an area of the field that you can exploit in that type of defensive configuration. Now that you got a hobbled Dallas Goedert, what does that do to Kansas City, who, of course, unveiled the blueprint on how to defeat Saquon Barkley or stop him? What does that do to their defensive and Steve Spagnuolo's preparation in order to kind of scheme against the Eagles? And I think it's an interesting question. Joe, maybe in a little bit we'll open the phone lines. I'm sort of toying with the idea of opening them up tonight. But I'm really interested in seeing how that affects the Eagles and their game plan. And of course, the other offensive question I have is the offensive line. Landon Dickerson kind of in and out of the game. Jordan Mailata. Did Jordan Mailata, in your opinion, have a good game last week against the Cowboys? Did he? I saw him holding a lot. Saw him holding a whole bunch. What kind of game did Jordan Mailata have? Why were the Eagles so hesitant to run Barkley out along, on the edge? Why was it all up the middle? What was going on the edge of the line that they didn't trust? Was it the injury? Was it Tyler Steen's presence in the lineup? What does that, what's going on offensively with this football team right now? Because I may be in a minority here by saying that I was not impressed by the Eagles' offensive performance on Thursday. They did what they had to do against a lesser team. and they found a way to win. And there's something to that. And I'm not discrediting the win. Important game. It could have been a 3-game or 2 or 3 game swing in the standings if they would have lost. A head-to-head, divisional, and a conference game all would have, been disastrous to start the season off with a loss. So they did what they had to do, and I'll give them the credit for that. But coming out, and I asked this, I think, last night or the night before, where's your confidence level on the Eagle offense after week 1? Now, I hate to say it, and if someone brings it up, I'm going to respond accordingly. But don't give me the September bullcrap. Don't give me, well, this is like the preseason. It's not like the preseason. I don't care how NFL teams attack training camp and how they attack preseason football. These games count. So there's no preseason here. I understand the concept, and I understand, what the mindset is here. The starters don't play in the preseason, and now this is their first opportunity to play. I don't agree with it. I'm not going to throw away games that count because I don't want to play my starter. If you're going to do that, if you're going to take that route and not play your starters in the preseason, in the actual preseason, and you're going to take that route, that's fine. But can you also be allowed to use the excuse that these games in September that count are like preseason games? I think that's, again, hypocritical, because you're telling a fan base, I'm not putting these guys out in the field I don't want them to get hurt. Number one, I don't want anybody getting hurt. So I'm going to hold them back, but we're going to do what we have to do to get them ready. But I want you as a fan base to accept the fact that we're not going to look good for the first 4 games of the year or so. And I want you to understand. So maybe the Elliott Shore Park's acceptable loss kind of was drawn from that hypocritical way of thinking, right? Because we're being told from the Eagles and all the other teams in the NFL, we're not going to put our players out there. We're not going to risk them getting hurt in the preseason. But we're going to want you to understand that we may not look good for the first 4 weeks of the actual season where the games count. And again, this is a baseballism. You're not going to win a Super Bowl in September. I get that, but you sure as hell can lose one. Because if they go 0-4, which I know they can't, but they go 1-3, there's a little bit of a panic mode going on right now. And is the best response to that panic? Oh, well, it's like the preseason. We have to expect that. I disagree. You're given ample amount of time to prepare for the start of the regular season. And you come out offensively, didn't look good. It did not look good at all. It looked at times one-layered. It was one-layered. It was Jalen Hurts running. That was the layer of the Eagle offense to me on Thursday night. Someone's going to actually figure that out too. Saquon Barkley was limited to the damage that he created against the Cowboys. And I took heat for this last night, and I'm sure I'm going to take heat when I say it again. Where was the home run hit? Where was that home run ball we've been waiting to see, or that we became so accustomed to seeing last year? Now, I'm not saying it happened every time, but more likely, especially in that mid-4th quarter area or late 3rd quarter, when the Eagles were holding on to like an 11 or 12-point lead, here comes Saquon up the seam for a 74-yard touchdown run to kind of put the game away. That never happened against the Dallas Cowboys. And now, that's 2 games right now that the Chiefs have, or I should say the last 2 games, where Saquon has not been the otherworldly, running back that he was in 2024. And is there any cause for alarm there, or is that because it's the preseason? Or is that because we really couldn't expect Saquon to rush for 2,500 all-purpose yards? I mean, these are all legitimate questions that I think nobody's talking about. And I really have a problem of why they're not talking about it. We consider ourselves critical thinkers here. We consider ourselves football experts in this town. Why are we not talking about it? Why are our voices being drowned out by the radical left? That's what I want to know. Oh, man. Dickerson is a full participant this week. Joe, I saw that, but again, the back problems have been a chronic issue with him, and he's dealt with for a couple seasons now. Is it going to flare up in the game again? I don't know. And Goddard and Matt are the phone lines. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. And Goddard is becoming a dad. Well, does that mean his knee goes out? I'm impressed with Hurts' ability to game manage each game situationally. Okay. Does his ability to play quarterback impress me? Usually not. I've come to the conclusion Hurts is a game manager with winner intangibles. So let's talk about what are our winner intangibles, Steve? And I'm being honest. I do not want to turn this into a Jalen Hurts debate. I'm sickened by it. I'm tired of talking about it. Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. He's a starter in this league. He's a Super Bowl champ. Yes. There's far worse options out there than Jalen Hurts. And it's a fine situation that he's in here. 100%. I'm not going to bag on that. And I'm not going to rag on the fact that doesn't belong here, or he's out of his depth. No, he's a good quarterback. Right. But again, you just mentioned he game manages each game situationally. Okay. Does his ability to play quarterback impress me? Usually not. I've come to the conclusion that Hurts is a game manager with win. Again, what are the winner intangibles? I'm honestly asking that question because I hear that all the time. I hear that he's a winner. Okay, is he a winner, or is the team that's assembled around him a winner? Again, I'm not, because we're talking elite. The conversation always gravitates to Jalen Hurts' elite level play, right? And when I think of an elite quarterback, I don't necessarily look at the talent around him. I mean, yes, there's talent around every quarterback. Every team has to have talent in order to win Super Bowls. Every team has to have it. But I'm telling you, you could take any wide receiver and Tom Brady's winning 7 Super Bowls. That's winner intangible talent, right? That's elite level play from a quarterback who can win no matter who he's got on the team. To a certain extent, he made the wide receivers on the Patriots and on the Buccaneers better because of him. Is A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith making Jalen Hurts better? Or is Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown making Jalen Hurts better? Because that matters when we're talking elite. That matters. Now, Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, I don't know. I mean, Jerry Rice, I don't know. I don't know who made who look better. Jerry Rice was a hell of a damn wide receiver. Roger Craig was a hell of a running back. Roger Craig wasn't running around the blocks laid out by Joe Montana. It was a really good offensive line, right? So I guess there's some give and take here. But when I look at that, and Pat Mahomes, let's go to Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes is always the other quarterback that I like to talk about when we're discussing actual elite level quarterbacks. We've seen Pat Mahomes do it, and he's probably going to have to do it this year with nothing around him. Josh Allen is throwing, dropping 40-some points to guys off the street. Pat Mahomes, completely vertical, flicks his wrist, the ball flies 65 yards down the field for a completion. That's elite level play. That's the winner intangibles that when I hear winner intangibles, that's what I'm talking about. Does the quarterback's play make the players around him better, or is it vice versa? That's how you judge, in my opinion, an elite level quarterback. I don't think Jalen Hurts is making Devontae Smith better. I don't think Jalen Hurts is making A.J. Brown better. I don't. I think it's opposite. I don't think Saquon Barkley Jalen Hurts makes Saquon Barkley better. I don't. He's a good quarterback. So I'm interested to know, what are winner intangibles? Oh, and Steve's going to answer. Stays calm under pressure, takes care of the ball, gives his team a chance to win. Good with the media and fans. Okay, I mean, those are winner intangibles. Yeah. Also, what about going rogue when he doesn't like the play, or not accompanying his team to be honored by the president after winning a Super Bowl? I mean, he is a leader, right? He's supposed to be the face of the franchise. He's the guy out front, regardless of what your political opinions might be. So he's not going to go do that. So we got rogue, we got not going to the White House, we got quitting in Alabama because he got benched. Again, what are those? Are those winner intangibles? I'm trying to create a picture here of what you're trying to say. You're right. Does he stay calm under pressure? Does he take care of the ball? Sometimes he does. Don't forget, Jalen Hurts was turning the football over at an epic clip last year prior to them going to a heavy run package. either through mostly through fumbles. I mean, he doesn't throw interceptions that often, but once again, when you're throwing everything down and out, most of the stuff can't get intercepted. But I'll buy that. He does take care of the ball for the most part. So, I need more though. He knows how to handle the egos in that locker room. Really? Do we know that for sure though? What's the ongoing season by season drama between him and AJ Brown? I mean, I understand that maybe it's blown up a little bit, and I can't comment on it because I'm not in that locker room. I don't know. But every year it pops up. Every year we have to listen to it. Every year AJ Brown is pissed off. And that's another point. How many more one-target games is AJ Brown going to last before he slips back into that role? When is that going to happen? And how important is it to get AJ Brown some catches so we don't have to go dealing with that crap early on in the season? So, again, I can't comment on that, Steven. I don't think you can comment on that because you're not in the locker room. We're not there. We don't know what really happened in that locker room. That's a media creation that he is allegedly handles the egos in that locker room. We don't know that for sure because we're not there. I noticed something about the Phillies after they got swept by the Mets in the series. In general, the Phillies have been 26 runs this series. Joe, you kind of tailed off there, man. I noticed something about the Phillies after they got swept by the Mets. This series in general, the Phillies have listen, they've gone off. And 31 or 32 series wins now for the Phillies on the season. Amazing. I think they only won 28 all of last year, 27 last, 24, something like that. I got to look at it. Listen, the Phillies have risen to the occasion. I will give you that. And it's great. I'm not feeling a playoff vibe down there at the bank. And I wasn't feeling that tonight or throughout this series. And the Mets came in here kind of on life support, but it's all about October, Joe. And I'm going to reserve my opinion for the Phillies until then. And we'll get ready to see how it all comes out. He absolutely benefits from the team around him. Did it at Alabama, Oklahoma, and now Philly. Yeah, I mean, but he got benched in Alabama and he quit. I know a lot of Jalen Hurts disciples out there will tell you that he was searching for greener pastures somewhere else. Well, I don't know where else other than a pro program that's consistently competing for a national championship are you going to search for a greener pasture. I don't know where else you get more exposure than you do in Alabama. Jalen Hurts quit Alabama because he was a quitter. I mean, the going got tough and he got going. Now, maybe he's matured in those years since. I'm sure he has. We all do. But let's call a spade here, right? He quit Alabama because he got benched. And I think that's a very fair thing to say. I can confirm that MattyB is crazy. I didn't listen. I never said anything about craziness. I said my takes are my own. Never said about craziness because I'm not crazy. So Steve points out the winning intangibles of Jalen Hurts, that he keeps the locker room together, he holds on to the football, and he doesn't panic under pressure. Yeah, I mean, yes. But I could say the same thing about Nick Foles. I could say the same thing about Trent Dilfer. I could say the same thing about insert name here, about every other most of the quarterback, Mark Rippon, Jeff Hostetler, Phil Simms. I mean, these are all guys that were kind of in that vein too. We don't look at any of those guys with this elite level. And I'm not saying, Steve, that you do. I'm just saying that all the elite level talk that we get is some pretty generic leadership traits of a quarterback. And again, he's a good quarterback. I will give you that 100%. But I ask this question all the time. I'm going to pose it to the assembled again. Maybe I should run one of them Twitter polls on it. If you were an owner in the National Football League, and Roger Goodell said, I'm tired of the imbalance. I don't like how these rosters are shaped. I don't think it's fair that certain teams have certain players. So what I'm going to do is I'm clearing the landscape. I'm taking all the chess pieces off the puzzle, off the table, off the board, and we're going to start over. So all the current players in the NFL are now in the 2025 redraft of the National Football League. You have to be actually rostered on a team right now in order to be eligible for this redraft. And we're going to let everybody pretty much draft again and build their teams over again from scratch. Now, you as the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, you get the first overall pick in this redraft. And obviously you're going quarterback because that's how you build a franchise. Are you taking Jalen Hurts over the rest of them? When you have the field of them to pick from, Pat Mahomes, Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, you have all of them out in front of you. Are you singling out Jalen Hurts and saying, I'm rebuilding my franchise around him? Or are you looking at Josh Allen going, you know what? He would look pretty good in midnight green. Or I'm looking at Pat Mahomes saying, yeah, I think we'll deal with some of that. He might be kind of the older version of some of the quarterbacks that you're dealing with now. But I would, deep down, most legitimate Eagle fans, and unless you're afraid of being reported on by the Homer Gestapo, and some of you are afraid of that, and again, I have always told Homers out there that I am their best friend. I am here to help you. I can offer you a way out of that cult. I'll get a deprogrammer. We'll get the white van. We'll get the whole nine. We'll take you to a warehouse and we'll deprogram you. And we'll get you away from that cult if you want. Just reach out. Homerism is an affliction. It's a disease. And it needs to be stamped out. And I am here to help. So if you are a Homer or if you know a Homer, have them contact me. I will help them in any way I can. So back to my point. Every true Eagle fan, regardless if they got the stones to say it or not, is going to say, I'm going another direction than Jalen Hurts. Now, if you're picking 5th, 6th, 8th, 9th, 10th overall in that draft, and Jalen Hurts is there, probably, yeah, let's go ahead with Jalen Hurts. But if you're picking 1st overall in the new NFL redraft, and you have an opportunity to select any quarterback out there that's currently rostered in the NFL, you're not taking Jalen Hurts, and you know you're not. But again, some of us have the ability to be honest and upfront and not be scared of the repercussions of speaking their minds. But once again, I preface all this by saying I don't hate Jalen Hurts. I don't. I mean, there's a lot of other worse options out there, but he is not and never is and probably never will be elite. I'm sorry. Just am sorry to tell you that. Because those winning intangibles, as Steve Fuentes mentioned, are pretty generic winning intangibles. And it pretty much comes with the job. If you don't have those intangibles as a quarterback, you don't have a job for long. So I need to see more. I need to see a quarterback that can go on any football team and make those players better. Jalen Hurts has not proven that. He hasn't. He was a benefactor last year of a defense that played above their heads so many levels, especially in the turnover department. Benefactor of that. And yeah, I am going to go as much to say that any winning quarterback in this league could have done what Jalen Hurts did last year and helping the Eagles win a Super Bowl. 100% agree to that. 100%. And I will not back off that at any point. Jalen Hurts was a benefactor of the team around him last year, and he contributed applicably to that team. He didn't go above and beyond. And don't give me the bull crap. Well, they didn't have to have him throw the ball. What the hell are you talking about? No, it's a cop-out, man. That's an excuse. That's an excuse to justify a narrative that doesn't exist. He was a benefactor of a really good football team around him, 100%. And so was Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley ran behind one of the better offensive lines in this league. I don't see Saquon Barkley. I don't see an argument ever. I never hear the argument about an elite running back. I never hear that. When I hear the Saquon Barkley argument, I always hear the offensive line about 5 seconds later, right? I always hear the contributions of the offensive line benefited to Saquon Barkley's success. But when I hear the stupid conversation about Jalen Hurts being elite, it's always about how Jalen Hurts lifted the team up. How? How and when did he do that? He did his job. 100% did his job. No more, no less. And they won a Super Bowl. Honest choice, I'd want Joe Burrow. So Steve Fuentes is saying if he was the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles in our new 2025 NFL redraft, where you have the ability to draft any player currently rostered in the NFL, and if he had the first overall pick, he'd go Joe Burrow, quarterback, LSU. That's an honest answer. I wouldn't. I don't like Burrow. I don't. I don't think he's. I don't like him, man. I'm going Mahomes or Allen, and I do a coin flip to decide which one I'm going with. KC is hurting also. They are. They're decimated on the wide receiver front. But until they tell me they're decimated at the quarterback position, I'm not buying it. Because Pat Mahomes elevates his team, Joe Hale. That's my point of all this. Pat Mahomes is an elite quarterback who elevates his team, who makes them look better than they actually are because of his play. That's what an elite player does to a team. So yes, Kansas City is hurting. But when you got Pat Mahomes running around back there, they're never going to be out of things. Now, how many times have we talked about if the Eagles were missing AJ? How many excuse-filled rants have I heard? Oh, they struggled because AJ Brown. What? I heard it in week one. We're struggling because AJ Brown is maybe a lot more hurt than we're being led on. Okay. Then put another wide receiver in there because that wide receiver's play will be elevated by Jalen Hurts. No, because it doesn't work like that with the Eagles. It doesn't work like that with Hurts. He needs to have good wide receivers. You could put Joe Schmo on the goddamn offensive line catching passes for the Chiefs, and Mahomes is going to make that the best he can. He's going to elevate that player. Now, maybe he elevates him from a garbage player to a terrible player. I don't know the elevation height, but he makes the players around him look better. So yes, they're banged up at wide receiver, 100%. But number 15's running around back there, and I'm sorry, man, he's got to be accounted for, and he makes the players around him that much better. I took Mahomes on my fantasy team in the third round. I never draft a quarterback in the third round, but when I went to the quarterback tab, and I'm like, they're all here. No one's taking quarterbacks. And I'm looking at them. I think Mahomes was like 5th, maybe 6th on the depth chart there in the ranking. And Hurts was ahead of him. I took Mahomes over everybody in the third round. Mahomes got me 26 points. And I ended up trashing my opponent in week 1. Because I know what an elite quarterback is. Now, Josh Allen was there. I was actually going to take Allen, but somebody picked him before me. Yeah, some idiot has the same kind of idea. The guy, I was picking 9th, the guy picking 8th. I'm like, okay, no quarterbacks taken. There's Josh Allen. I'm taking him. Boom, there goes Allen. I'm like, damn. So I took Mahomes. But it was going to be either Allen or Mahomes because those are elite level quarterbacks. They elevate the players around them to their ability. And that's what Mahomes does. And again, Hurts doesn't do it. He uses the abilities of the players around him, but you have to have really good players around him. 1-900 help a homer, MattyB charity. No, it's not. It's not a charity. I offer a service. Again, Big Al and everybody else watching. And thank you, by the way, for everyone who's tuned in. Please help this out here. Like, share, subscribe, do all those things the kids do. I appreciate it. It's not a charity. I feel sorry. Not that I don't feel sorry. I am empathetic to the homers. I am very empathetic to them. I want to help you. I want to bring you back into the light. All you got to do is admit you have a problem, and I will spring into action. I will get you the help. I will get you a deprogrammer. I'll get you away from the big vat of green Kool-Aid. I'll get you away from the chanting people in robes. I'll get you away from all of that. And I will get your mind right. And I will get you back on the road to recovery. It's not a charity. We are a nonprofit organization. It's me and a couple guys rolling around the streets of Philadelphia in a white van. So I will help you. Just say the word and I will spring into action and I will release you from the grip of homerism. It is a disease. And like any other disease, it's treatable. You just have to ask for help and I'll be there. I mean it. I'm a people person. I have a soft spot for humanity. My job is to serve mankind, and I am here to help you. So just reach out. Our email's down there, and I will spring into action. Matt, are you doing fantasy football? Yeah, I just went on a rant about it. Yeah, I'm doing fantasy football. I do a one league a year. Nothing. It ain't money involved. It's just for fun. 1-0 to start the season. First place overall in my league. 126 points to start week 1. Pretty good start. 10-team league. I've only won one fantasy championship in my life. That was back in 2002. So maybe this is the year that I, pull it all together. We got 15 more weeks of this, so I can still go 1-15. But a good start, definitely a good start. Pat needs help with this computer. LOL. I don't know if that doesn't fall into the banner of homerism. It's some other kind of stuff. Pat's got to figure that out, man. And Pat is working on that. He is working diligently as we speak on that. He's talking to call centers all over the Pakistan and India regions of the world right now, trying to get his computer back up so that he can get back here as fast as he possibly can. And we are awaiting Pat's return with bated breath here on the network. But in the meantime, don't worry, because the wraparound will still happen on Fridays at 10:30. Mike Laro will be in, as he's been in for the last 7 weeks, in Pat's stay, as we navigate you through this weekend, as we get you started for the weekend. I actually not navigate you through it, but we get you started. So make sure you're tuned in Friday nights at 10:30 here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network for the wraparound, starring Pat Bernard with Mike Laro as your permanent, semi-permanent fill-in host until Pat can figure out his internet issues. But listen, I want to get to one more topic before I want to pivot. We dabbled in the Phillies a little bit. It's Steve kind of, it's a feeling good situation. Bader, being inserted into the lineup as your leadoff guy. That's probably the biggest thing I'm seeing from this whole. And then I gave Dave Dombrowski credit this the other night. Finally, a trade deadline movement works out for the guy. He hasn't worked out at all, but this year, finally, with the Duran and the Bader move, it's worked out, at least right now. It seemingly it does. So 11-3 winners. They go for the sweep tomorrow, and then they got the Royals. Perfect opportunity to potentially, if things break right, to clinch the NL East at home over the weekend. Can you wrap your heads around that? The Phillies could clinch the NL East on Sunday if things go right? That's pretty cool. And hopefully that's what happens. What's going on, Bill? How you been, man? Good to see you. Bill Akins of the Steel City Sunday pre- and post-game Steeler coverage here on the network. They were off and running. They'll be back at you on Sunday at 10 a.m. live from, where is that place? Pittsburgh, Ohio. No, Pittsburgh's in Pennsylvania, right? See, I had a problem growing up, folks. I ain't going to lie to you. It was geographically challenged as a kid. I recognized everything west of Harrisburg as Ohio, and I know I was wrong, but every now and again I slip back into that. But yes, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The guys over there at the Steel City Sunday program, new to the network. And we welcome them with open arms, and hopefully good show last week. A lot of great guests, a lot of great content. If you're into the Steelers, or if you're into just really good football talk, I was surprised. It wasn't like some of these shows on this network are. This is the Eagles. No, they were touching bases on a lot of different topics, and good stuff. So continued success. I believe it's Steelers and Seahawks this weekend. So make sure you're tuned in, starting at 10 a.m. on Sunday, as they got you covered for both pre- and post-game. But don't forget, on this network, that's right, the Eagles will be back on Sunday at 4:15 or 4:30, and then immediately following that game, Steve Fuentes will have the Birds Flyby, our post-game show. We don't do a pre-game show. You guys want to do a 3-hour coverage of Eagle pregame on Sunday? That's a lot, man. But Eagles-Chiefs post-game, immediately following the game. Guess the game will be over around 7:30 Sunday night. So make sure you're back here on the network checking that out and all that great stuff. So, all right, let's go to the of the night segment, because I do want to talk Flyers. All right, the other night segment here on the program where we take a Flyers prospect, Flyers draft pick, Flyers or draft target, Phillies prospect, Phillies draft pick, target. We spotlight some players from the Flyers and Phillies depending on whose season's coming up or whatever. And we've been doing the Flyers spotlight players for the last 3 weeks or so. And I've reached the end. Tonight's the last one. Tonight's the last player I will spotlight who I think is going to be part of what happens this season. And it scares me. It honestly does. I've said this last night. I only have 17 players that I am spotlighting this year. 17. You got to dress 20 on game day. You got to have 20 players on your bench. And I'm only spotlighting 17 because I don't know who the other 3 players are. And that scares me. And it's going to kind of help me out with my next segment when we start talking about the State of the Union address today by the Flyer Brain Trust. So, but before we get to that, let's get to tonight's spotlight player, and we're going to round it out and finish it off on the defensive side of the house. One of the more lacking areas of the production. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you what was worse last year, offense, defense, or goaltending, because you can make an argument for all 3 that were pretty bad at times. I guess the most positive upside was the offense with the Michkov emergence, and then the step forwards by Forrester and Cates. Some players stepped it up offensively and had you kind of really excited. So maybe the offense wasn't necessarily, they weren't good, they weren't potent, but there were some good news stories within that offense. But when you look inside the coach, the goalie, and the defense, it's hard to pick out a player or players and say, you know what, I really feel confident about them going forward. And I've been really on this defensive kick for the last couple of days now. And I honestly think the defense on the Flyers was terrible last year. And we're going to finish it off with another bad contract, put it that way, a Chuck Fletcher contract that we're still stuck with. A player who's never, ever risen to the expectations that he was supposedly going to be and have, both in Buffalo and now here. Now he's stuck here making millions of dollars, and we're stuck watching him. And I speak, of course, of Rasmus Ristolainen. Risto, 63 games played for Risto, which was a positive. He had a pretty injury-plagued 23-24 season. Came back and was, has some injury issues, but still played 63 games, 4 goals, 15 assists for 19 points, and a +3. So that's positive. Finishes on the plus side of things. Risto was pretty hurt the year before. And maybe it took him, and he kind of battled some injuries last year as well, some naggers. But is there some renewed expectation in what Ristolainen brings to the table? He did not play that bad, especially as the season wore on, and it seemed like he got kind of more comfortable or sort of got his legs back about him. He started playing better, especially as a defensive defenseman, which is a rare trait anymore in this league. The goal scoring production is putrid. We've been told that, one of the reasons why the Flyers went out and, sort of mortgaged the farm for him was for his goal scoring ability. That has never really sort of come to fruition here. But his defensive abilities and his defensive play last season did improve a bit. And I'm going to be honest about that. I was pretty impressed by that. But he needs to take another step forward next year. Another immense step forward. I mean, they all got to, but Risto's definitely got to, because right now he's either your 3rd line defensive pair guy or he's your 2nd line defensive pair guy. And he was projected to be a number 1 line projected guy. And that's the problem with Ristolainen, is we don't know where he fits. And that's been an issue with him in Buffalo. And it's been an issue with him here in Philadelphia. There's never been a place to put him where he seems to fit. Some nights he's playing like a number 1 guy. A lot of nights he's playing like a 3 guy. I mean, finding a home for Ristolainen on that blue line is job number 1. Well, job number 1G, if you're going down the 1 priority list. But finding him a home, a permanent home on the blue line, has got to be a priority for the Flyers this training camp. And maybe he continues that progression, and maybe that's all he's lacking. Maybe it's just to find a spot for him to play and a player to play with. So if the Flyers unlock that, you might actually start getting some investment return on that money. If not, we're going to spend another year talking about another bad contract that the Flyers are stuck with for a few more years. So Rasmus Ristolainen, your defenseman, will round out our Flyers spotlight players for this season. I have no more to spotlight because there's no more that I can see that are currently rostered on this team that I want to talk about as being pivotal pieces to the Flyers rebuild in 2025-26. And that leads me to my Flyers segment, which, of course, today, if you missed it, go back on YouTube and watch it. Keith Jones and Dan Hilfery met the assembled media today down in South Philadelphia and discussed the state of the Flyers union. And I knew we were in for a long one when the Comcast Spectacor governor of the Flyers said, I measure success of 25-26 in the team's continued growth. Listen, I get the guy's not a hockey guy. I get he's a businessman, but and he said it actually, kind of contradicted himself in his press conference. I'm not looking for growth in 25-26. And I'm not looking for that. I am looking for them to reverse the course of history. The Flyers cannot miss the playoffs this year. They cannot be the team that sets the franchise record of missing the playoffs for 6 straight years. No other team in the franchise history of the Flyers have gone 6 straight years of no playoff appearances. And this cannot be the one. They got to move heaven and earth and find a way into the playoffs. Now, I mean, on paper, as if you were following these spotlight players that I've been going over for the past month and some change, I don't see it on paper that it's going to happen. I don't. But you don't play the game on paper. You play it on the ice. There's a training camp, which I mentioned last night. If you're a hockey person or if you're a Flyers fan, I highly recommend you going down to Voorhees and checking out at the skate zone some Flyers training camp this year, because this should be one of the better ones, the more spirited camps in a long time. Because there's going to be a lot of positions up for battle. There's going to be a lot of players that we don't even know yet that are going to be looked at to take steps forward. You got Rick Tocchet also to factor into all this. This should be a very interesting training camp because there's roster spots to be won on this team. And if we're talking growth, are we talking about maybe seeing some return on the investment of draft picks? Because that has been very minuscule throughout this rebuild. Now, they also mentioned that we are at a stage in year 3 or year 4 where instead of dumping players, instead of getting rid of things, that it's time to start adding and building. And that's how it works. That's how a rebuild works, especially for a team that was so salary capped, hamstring as the Flyers were. It took some time to get out from under that. And now that they're starting to do that on the money side. But the other side of that coin is the draft. Has been the draft over the past few seasons. It's time to start seeing some yield from that. Right now, if you look at the drafts over the past 3 years, and these are all Danny B's drafts, he's done 3 of them now. There's one player currently contributing for the Flyers from those drafts, and that's Michkov. One, and that's Michkov. He's the only player over the last 3 drafts that's contributing for the Flyers in the Danny B draft era. One player. That needs to change. And I don't know, I'm not saying you got to force a round peg into a square hole. If the player's ability is not there, then don't force them. But we need to see some yield, or I need to see some yield from some of these draft picks. I need to see the Oliver Bonks of the world finally step out of the damn shadows and claim their space on this team. Jet Lichenko, the former 13th overall pick 2 years ago, needs to make this hockey team. They invested a lot in him, and I thought it was a reach then. I still think it's a reach, and I don't know if that's ever going to work out. But there's a spot on this team for a Jet Lichenko. We don't have a number 1 center. We got a bunch of centers. None of them are offensively gifted. They're competent, but we don't have a true number 1 center. I'm not saying Lichenko is that guy, but he could be a center on this team. You look at some of the other lesser players that we've drafted over the last 3 years. what's the kid out of Arizona State? McLaughlin. There's a few players out there, and we'll get more deeper into this as we get closer to the season. As of course, as training camp sort of unfolds. I need to see this guy from the 2023 NHL draft, third round guy. Hey, he's going to make the team. I need to see some of the yield on that. If we get some of that, and I highly expect a bunch of draft picks to make this team. Oliver Bonk better make this team. I don't, nothing else to say about that. Oliver Bonk needs to make this team. If not, we've wasted a draft pick. Denver Barkey, probably not. One more year maybe of him playing major junior. He hasn't grown into his body yet. Still looks like a 15-year-old boy skating around out there. But we need to see some yield. We haven't gotten any day one NHL talent from any of these drafts, to include the one we just did. So I need to see some yield from the drafts. And then, of course, the continued development of some of the players that we talked about this summer. The Noah Cates of the world, the Tyson Forresters of the world. By the way, I guess Danny B will speak to the media next week and give an update on the progress of Forrester. But Jones said he fully expects Forrester to be ready for the start of the season. And that's good. The goalie situation. Jonesy was on about Sam Ersson, thinking that Ersson's going to get pushed by some of the talent that's been brought in to compete. Now, Carson Bjornsson, a second-round pick a couple years ago, the goalie will be a part of the camp. Will probably start the season as the starter in Lehigh Valley for the Phantoms, but he's going to push Ersson. Dan Vladar is going to push Ersson. There was mention of Alexei Kolbasov being an active participant in this camp, which shocked the hell out of me. When asked about Fedotov, Jonesy was a little less committal about that by saying, "Well, if you had to ask me, essentially, Kolbasov is the younger version of him, and so he kind of deflected off of Fedotov and went to Kolbasov. So expect Kolbasov to be there this summer. Now, whether that works out or not, I don't know. They were mum about the Carter Hart thing because the NHL has told them to be, because these players have been currently not banned, but they are ineligible to play in the NHL right now until the NHL completes its internal investigation, which I think is completely a violation of the CBA and these players' rights. They've already been acquitted in a criminal court of law. Why does there need to be another investigation? So the NHL, and obviously the reason why they're doing that is because it's a PR nightmare brewing for the National Hockey League, and they're trying to get ahead of that. You can read between the lines there, but they were very non-committal about. No one said the playoffs. The fan in me wants the playoffs. We all want the playoffs, but nobody wanted to sit down and say, yes, we are dead set on making the playoffs. And how do you feel about that, man? I get it. The end state of a rebuild is not to make the playoffs. It's to win a Stanley Cup. But you can't win the cup unless you're in the playoffs. So for the Flyers to remain, at least on the surface, as a PR, non-committal about their wanting to make the playoffs, does that scare you at all for year 4 of this? Does this bother you at all? Does it get you into a mindset of, oh, here we go, just another year, another wasted season until we get more cap room next year? And some people are thinking they're going to make a play for McDavid. They're not doing that. McDavid's never going to hit the open market. But how does that make Flyers fans feel? And honestly, for me as a Flyers fan, who has had to sit through 5 years of not making the playoffs, I fear that we're not making the playoffs in year 6. I really think that we're going to set we are going to set a modern franchise record of not getting to the playoffs for 6 straight years. And that doesn't sit well for me. Rebuild or no rebuild. You got to show growth. Yes. You got to show progress. Well, what's the growth and progress of a sports team that hasn't made the playoffs in 5 years? It's to make the playoffs. That's growth and progress. I get the individual side of that. I know you want to see continued development from Mitch Goff. You want to see Forrester, Case. Brink needs to bounce back. Cam York needs to bounce back. There's a lot of players here that there's a lot of questions around that need to take that next step. And if they all collectively take that next step, then maybe we're talking about the playoffs. But to sit here, to look ahead to next April and the Flyers say are not in the playoffs, and they didn't make the playoffs, and I don't care if they didn't make it by 2 points or 20. What are we doing? What is the next step in this? Because then you got to look at, okay, we dumped all dead weight. We got rid of the players we didn't think were going to be part of this, but now we're stuck with these guys. Are they going to be part of this? So I understand it's a slippery slope, and I get it. I'm not asking someone to tap me on the forehead with a magic wand and say, you know what, they're getting to the playoffs, they're going to win a cup next year. I'm not going to say that, but I want to be optimistic about making the playoffs, and I'm not necessarily about that. I'm all about winning championships, and I've said that, and I've gone on record many times saying I am all about winning championships. But right now, when it comes to the hockey team, when it comes to the product that we've had to endure over the past 5 years of this, throw us a bone, man. Get back to the playoffs. Get the energy back. Get the orange towels going again, man. The Hulk Hogan video. Get us back there. Get playoff hockey back to South Philadelphia in April, because it's been far too long since it's been here. And I would judge not making the playoffs, and I'm going to say it, if they don't make the playoffs, it's failure of a season, and I'm not listening to rebuild nonsense anymore, because now you're not making sense with the rebuild because no one's stepping forward, because now we're kind of stuck in neutral. And there's a lot of questions on this team, and goaltending, defense, and offense, which are all levels of the game, are in question. So I walked out of that presser not feeling all that optimistic about the Flyers this year. But of course, it's September. They haven't hit the ice yet. Things could change. Players could step up. Things could develop. Trades can be made, and players could make this team out of camp. But I'm a little less optimistic about this. Joe says, going to remind you. Thank you, Joe. I'm sorry. I get caught up, man. We got to make the playoffs. This is not a bust. If not, this is a bust career. Yeah, I'm not. You listen, and that'll be a question for next spring, whether or not the honeymoon is over, and whether or not Danny B is the right guy, and whether or not Keith Jones is the right guy for this job. I mean, those questions will come if they don't make the playoffs, and and where the season ended up, but. I need to see it, man. I need to see something. I gotta get playoff hockey back. I can't go through another year of this. I get it. We've committed to a rebuild, and there's certain things that you got to do in a rebuild. But history's calling, literally. And I hope the Flyers ain't picking up the phone, man. I hope they're not. All right, now that was my hockey segment. Let's finish it up with the baseball, or with the card review. All right, we're going to wrap it up here tonight as we do every night, and that is with the MattyB's card review. We're going to take a card from my sports card collection and talk about the card, a little bit of the history, have some fun with it, financial, all those kinds of things that come with talking about sports cards. Talk about designs, talk about all kinds of baseball, or I just gave it away. We're back to baseball tonight. We were hockey last night. We did the Rick Tocchet 90-91 team score leader card. Tonight we're going back to the granddaddy of them all when it comes to sports cards. That's baseball. But we're going to go back into the very beginnings of the digital age, the very beginning of the non-wax pack era, which was the early 2000s. And an interesting card because it's a player that was towards the end of his career, Hall of Famer, one of the best pitchers, I think, really to play in this game. Bounced around, but had his most notable success with the Atlanta Braves early in his career. 2 stints with the Cubs, and this is his last stint with the Cubs in 2004. And this is not a Topps card. This is, well, let me go back and say it's kind of not a Topps card. It's not a Fleer Dunross. It's from the Bowman company. Now, Bowman is currently owned by Topps. Now, Bowman actually has some Philadelphia ties to it. If you guys are not aware of this, the Bowman Company was a Philadelphia-based card company in the 1920s. And they were one of the first really to kind of get into, pushing out cards, baseball, basketball, and football. They were acquired by Topps in 1956. But then Topps sort of shut them down and sort of forgot about them. But in 1989, they resurrected Bowman and began to use Bowman again as sort of an offshoot of Topps. So you got, and it's still going this way today. Bowman releases cards that are not Topps, but they're under the Topps banner of baseball cards. And it's all baseball cards now. Bowman was actually the first brand that went into the Chrome world. It was the Bowman Chrome cards back in the early 2000s. Matter of fact, it was 1997 was the first Chrome cards that Bowman did. Now Topps is doing Chrome. It was very successful for Bowman, so Topps started doing it. But Bowman still does Chrome. I have a bunch of Bowman Chromes in my collection. This is not one of them. This is just a straight base card. But Bowman is, again, a company that gets kind of forgotten about these days. And gets sort of lumped into the Topps brand, which it is. It's been part of Topps since the 50s. But before that, it operated independently out of Philadelphia. So a little Philadelphia tie-in tonight with the Bowman. And tonight we're going to talk about the 2004 Bowman First Edition base card of, drum roll please, Greg Maddux. And here it is. It's a first edition base auto card. Now, when I say auto card, I want to be very clear. This is not a live inked auto card. This was the, they do this sometimes. 80 Topps did this throughout the whole series where they just had every card was auto. It's not necessarily signed by the player. It's a generic player signature just repositioned on each card. And this was one of those types of cards that they did in 04. But it is a first edition. Now, this is towards the end of Greg Maddox's career, but it's very funny that I looked around when looking at prices for this card. Currently, this exact card, as a PSA 9, is a $35 baseball card. And that's pretty impressive for a card that, of a pitcher whose career was sort of at the end. I can see a Maddox rookie maybe going for about $35. But for a Bowman First Edition 04 base card, Greg Maddox. This is a $35 baseball card as a PSA 9. And pretty smart looking card. Again, this was one of the first digitally, just in the beginning of the digital age, the non-wax pack era. Pretty decent borders there. I like the design, the black and the red. And in the back, it's you got a color photo of the player and then his stats of his career sort of there. But a smart looking baseball card. And I was fairly impressed by the amount of money that this card was going for. And here it is right here in its physical form as I'm holding on to it right now. So I'm holding on to maybe about a $35 baseball card. So there's the back right there. So there you go. Bowman 2004 Topps, or Bowman 2004 Greg Maddox First Edition. About $35 as a PSA 9. So there you go, man. There's my card review of the 2004 Bowman Greg Maddox. I just found my Jerome Brown rookie card and it got looked at a card dealer. Goes for there you go, man. Look at Joe Hale. $300 Jerome Brown rookie. That's pretty good. Adam Cease had a Reggie White rookie when he wore 92. That's a very rare card, but it's not rare. It's a cool card, but it's not rare. I would love to get my hands on it, though. But there you go. Jerome Brown for a rookie card for $300. Good stuff, Joe. Good stuff. All right, folks. Hour and almost a half of a spirited conversation about the Eagles' preparations for week 2. Somehow got into the Jalen Hurts is not an elite quarterback conversation, but a good quarterback. Yeah, Phillies 7-game magic number as they put away the Mets. Mets are dead. Mets are actually in jeopardy of not making the playoffs as the Giants are chasing them down. But their chances of winning the NL East are pretty much over. Phillies are just now biding time to clinching. And we'll get into maybe some conversation tomorrow night about the benefits or the non-benefits of clinching early. I mean, do the Phillies, are they better off stretching this thing out? And how do they look at clinching? If they clinch the NL East, do we, call off the dogs and not push for the number 1 overall seed in the NL? How important is that to the Phillies? It's not important to me, but a whole bunch of conversations are going to come up. Topics are going to come up if the Phillies can clinch, and if it all works, they could clinch this weekend at home against Kansas City, which I would prefer to, because if they don't, they're going to do it out on the road, and they're going to do it out in the West Coast, which sucks. So we'll get into that tomorrow night. And we talked about the Flyers. Keith Jones and Dan Hilferty, given the State of the Union address today for the Flyers, left me feeling not optimistic about making the playoffs. And am I off the base by saying that making the playoffs is that important? I think it is. I think the Flyer fans need it. I know I do. And we did our other night, our day in Philadelphia sports history, and of course our card review, all that great stuff tonight. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Remember, here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network, we have now gone scheduled. That's right. We have produced a schedule, and here you go. So tonight's Wednesday. Tomorrow, a big day. The Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn returns at 7. The Attacking Third at 9. Then you got the Fighting's Final, Phillies Mets, and then me wrapping it all up later tomorrow night with the final word. So make sure you're back tomorrow, September 11th. Wow, that's right. Tomorrow is the 11th. And then the weekend, as you can see right now. So lots to do and see here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network. Just make sure you're tuned in, and we'll have some fun tomorrow. And Joe Hale will remind me to open up the phone lines early on so we can interact, which I should have done tonight. Sorry, Joe. I get off of my rants and I'm lost. But until we talk tomorrow, folks, you guys have a great rest of your night and an even better tomorrow. See ya.